Today we're going to go a little more in depth into deposition. We've talked about weathering, which is breaking down something. We've talked about erosion, which is moving the sediment somewhere else. And now we're going to talk about deposition, which is actually dropping it or leaving it somewhere. Do a quick review of erosion. It's the process by which natural forces move weathered rock and soil from one place to another. When I say natural forces, it's something in nature. It's not me picking up a rock and taking it somewhere and dropping it. Some of the ways it can get from one place to another would be wind, water, waves, rivers, glaciers, and gravity. Deposition is our last activity in our whole weathering, erosion, and deposition. It occurs where the agents of erosion, so those things like wind, water, actually lay the sediment down. So it's moved the sediment from one place to another, and then this is its stopping point. Those changes can change the shape of the land because the sediment can build up over time. Consider a river. It's always flowing, which means it's always moving sediment. Sometimes when it comes to a curve, it may drop some of that sediment. So a river actually can create various little landforms by depositing the sediment in those curves throughout the river. You can see here in the picture we have a stream that's feeding into a river. And in this river, you can see a lot of places where sediment has been dropped for one reason or another. It may have come out of the stream, or it may be a result of coming around that last curve. But it's dropped it down or deposited in the river, and over time, it's built up these small little land areas in the river. One of the places that the river can build up sediment is right at the mouth of the river. So as the sediment washes down and reaches a larger body of water, maybe an ocean or a sea, it tries to move out into the ocean, but the ocean is pushing it back. So it creates a delta. One of those is called an alluvial fan. It's a cone-shaped or fan-shaped deposit of sediments at the mouth of a river. Here's a great example of alluvial fan. You can see the water is moving down this mountain through a small river. It's bringing sediment with it, and it's depositing here at the mouth of the river, probably in an ocean right here. And again, the ocean is moving in and pushing the sediment back as the river is moving it out and trying to release it into the ocean. Its result is this beautiful kind of sediment formation at the mouth of the river. So a delta is where the river meets the ocean at the mouth of the river. The soil carried by the river is deposited at the mouth. So it's coming down the river. Again, it's going to the mouth where it empties into the next thing. And here, it is dropping it or depositing it and creating this small landform. This is a great little schematic of how a delta forms. You can see that the river is flowing. It spreads out a little bit as it approaches the sea, or what we would call the mouth of the river. The river splits and it kind of tries to drop that sediment in different places, but because it can't move all the way out into the sea because the sea is kind of pushing it back in, it deposits it. Sometimes it builds up as little areas as seen here, and sometimes it builds up as more of the alluvial fan that we saw earlier. A barrier island is formed where sand is deposited in one area by ocean currents. So much sand is actually deposited there, it becomes its own island. They can change based on storms and tides. So barrier islands can change over time. You can lose parts of them or you can gain parts of them. I've seen many changes in islands over the years. And as the water patterns change, so can the islands. Up the Georgia coast, we have actually quite a few barrier islands. Some of you might be familiar with St. Simon's, or maybe even Jekyll Island or Cumberland Island, Tybee Island. Some of you may have been there in the past. Those are all barrier islands that we can find off the coast of Georgia. Beaches are actually formed by waves bringing in sediments and rocks and other things onto the land and depositing it. And again, depending on the tides and how high the water comes or how low it comes, depending on storms in the area, the waves might bring in different amounts of sediment. Often if you've been to the beach, it may not look the same as it did the year before because the waves have brought in more sediment or they've taken out a lot of the sediment. When we talk about sand dunes at the beach, they are a big deposit of sand. So we've got erosion going on, and the sand is moving generally by either water or wind, and it's depositing so much that's building up these mounds or dunes. So they're actually formed by the wind depositing sand in a desert or along the beach. Finally, you might want to find the video on the stream table so you can see how different landforms and areas are changed by the water over time.